A former WWE Champion's deal with the company is ending soon. This, according to PW Insider. According to Mike Johnson of PW Insider, sources close to them note that Drew McIntyre's deal with WWE is coming to an end soon, and the two sides have yet to agree on a new deal. It goes on to say that while McIntyre's deal is not up imminently, it is in its final year. Johnson also noted that despite McIntyre's recent success with the company, the two sides aren't even close to a new deal. So, again, Mike Johnson is one of the more reputable people in the business when it comes to wrestling news, contract news, all that kind of stuff. So, don't definitely dismiss it, but also, as with all wrestling news, take it with a grain of salt. But assuming this report is accurate, this is big because Drew McIntyre is not only one of the best stars that WWE has on its roster right now, it's one of like the very few stars under the Vince McMahon era they were able to make, at least in the past, like 10 years they were able to make. There's only a handful of people who can say that they've had, and they've been booked, I should say, at the level that Drew McIntyre has with the consistency that he was, well, at least once booked with. And especially when he reached the top, when he won the Royal Rumble, that was a big moment because it felt at least like it was a bit of a changing of the guard in WWE. And you finally got to see this guy who was once called the Chosen One by Vince McMahon himself, who was then denigrated, who was then demoted to something of the likes of 3MB, which was a jobber group. It was a fun group. We all know they were just a bunch of jobbers together. But they took that guy who went on the indies, busted his butt for years on the indies, came back as one of the baddest ass kickers. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Ass kickers in the entire company. So McIntyre is, again, and then he went on and he beat Brock Lesnar in the main event of Mania. Again, it was the pandemic Mania, unfortunately. It should have been in front of like 60,000 plus. It wasn't. It was still a great scene, and it was great that Drew at least got a moment like that. And he's headlined major pay-per-views. The Cardiff event, like that atmosphere in Cardiff at Clash of the Castle, is genuinely one of the most insane, and you will never be able to replicate what that was. It was a moment in time, much like I've said on this channel that Sami Zayn in Montreal, that was a moment in time that you're never going to be able to repeat. You're never going to be able to go back and make a different decision with. Same thing with Clash of the Castle. Now, as far as this contract situation, McIntyre, again, one of the best that WWE has. It is critical for WWE to keep a guy like McIntyre because right now, WWE is in a very weird place from a perspective standpoint, from a PR standpoint, as far as the way that wrestling fans kind of view them. Because, remember, 2021, that was like AEW's year. They had the big splashes. They signed Punk. They were able to sign people like Malachi Black. They were able to sign like all these people that WWE let go and bring people back into wrestling, and signing Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, baby. That was their year. Then 2022 rolls around, and WWE, when Cody came to WWE, that kind of took the narrative back, and WWE controlled their narrative. Again, I hate using that term, but it's a great term to use when we're talking about something like this. And then, the Vince McMahon stuff happened. Vince McMahon leaves, and Triple H is in charge, and the momentum, the stories, and what the WWE just felt different. It felt better, way better than it had been in years. And that a lot of that had to do with Triple H. Now with Vince McMahon coming back into the fold as far as being back in charge of WWE, Nick Khan confirmed that earlier this week. The questions that fans have been asking is like, what's the future of WWE creative? While Vince is not in charge of WWE creative right now, how soon until he is? And, you've had outlets like Fightful and Wrestling Observer report that the backstage reaction to Vince possibly coming back to creative isn't great in WWE. And honestly, if you look at what he booked like before he was leaving, or before he was forced to leave the first time, It wasn't great, and you could see why people would be frustrated. So it's gonna be an interesting decision as far as like how that plays, because if McIntyre decides to leave and let's say he goes and does the indies, or he goes to AEW, jump ship to the other company. The most interesting thing about that is going to be how it plays with the broader wrestling audience, because you're going to see this shift in the discussion of, man, WWE, they just lost Drew McIntyre. This guy won the Royal Rumble 3 years ago. This guy main evented WrestleMania 3 years ago. Like, what happened? How did it get to this point? And that's what you're going to be hearing. And that's just the way I see it. Now, you could definitely make the argument that WWE might be the best place for McIntyre to go, at least to get showcased. One of the biggest problems in AEW right now is and it's not the inability, it's just it's the lack of availability of time on TV. And I know that AEW Collision is a thing that might happen, and it's reported that they're going to get an extra hour of TV on like Saturday. That's fine. But getting that prime time live television, like that time to be showcased and feel like it's important. AEW only has 2 hours of TV that really feel like important and must watch. I for one love Rampage, but even I don't watch it live unless like you're gonna have something like insane like the first dance or Shibata versus Orange Cassidy. You're not gonna get me to watch Rampage live. I'm sorry. So I mean, and I understand the argument, like, well, that's still television. You're still gonna get exposure. Yeah, you're gonna get exposure, but not as much exposure as you would get on WWE TV, and you're able to capitalize honestly on that a little more, I think, than you would be on something if you're on something like Rampage. And that's not like me assuming that, oh, if McIntyre goes to AEW, he's gonna immediately be on Rampage. No, but eventually he's gonna find his way there, because at the end of the day, AEW only has so much television time, and they have all these amazing talents. And as great as a lot of them are, let's be honest, you're not going to be able to showcase all of them within 2 hours, and you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't try to cram everybody in 2 hours, because then your show is going to feel off. It's going to feel much like AEW did in those few months, those summer months into fall in 2022, when they were trying to integrate Ring of Honor and they were trying to integrate some New Japan and all those other partnerships they have. It felt off. It felt weird. It felt like the show was a jumbled mess, and you definitely don't want that. So it's definitely something that, you would think that McIntyre would think about how he would be presented. But the other thing is, I mean, if you're Drew McIntyre, right, there's no reason why another company wouldn't sign you. And the only other company that I think is going to be able to offer comparable money to WWE is AEW. So the question then becomes, how do you leverage AEW versus WWE? How do you leverage that? I assume that WWE wants to keep him around. Like, let's be honest. WWE does not want to lose Drew McIntyre for the PR reasons, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. But on top of it all, they don't want to lose Drew McIntyre because he's one of the best in the world. That's an automatic pop every time he comes out. You know he's gonna have a banger match. You know that dude is gonna go out there and deliver every single night. He cuts a great promo. He's one of the few people you got in your roster who's main evented WrestleMania. Like, you have to keep him. You have to keep him for WWE. So it's a weird situation to be in. Where do I think he ends up? I mean, it's way too early to say, to be quite honest with you. But if I had to put like my money on it, I think he stays with WWE. If he were to leave, I assume it would be for a boatload of money, of course. And, I mean, he would have to be presented as something very important in AEW. And, I mean, that's like the only other place he would go. Like, I love Impact Wrestling. Drew McIntyre's way too big of a fish for that pond. I'm going to be very honest with y'all. He's way too big for that. I don't think Impact's going to have the funds to actually get Drew McIntyre. Because Drew McIntyre in 2018, he was on or in 2017, whenever he was on Impact, you could have gotten that Drew McIntyre because he was still building himself up. This dude is a viable product now. Like, he is a viable entity. He is a main event. He's a WrestleMania main event. You ain't gonna Impact's not gonna be able to sign him. MLW, get out of it. Like, I love MLW. I like the company. Kurt Bauer is one hell of a promoter. I'll say that much. and that's all fine and good. I just don't think that like they're not going to be able to pay him. Maybe he decides, like, if he wants to, if he really wants to, he'll do like New Japan and he'll do like a bunch of indies. But all roads, pardon the pun, all roads point to Drew McIntyre, I think, staying in WWE. But I want to hear from you. What do you guys think? Is Drew McIntyre going to stay with WWE? Is he going to leave? Are we going to get some sort of weird situation where he wrestles on the indies? I don't know. Y'all let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Check out our channel for lists, live streams, podcasts, and much more. Subscribe. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, and keep it real.